freedom pass from hand to yearning hand, and the vision of our fathers spread hope throughout this land, as the dream some fought and died for in my heart becomes my own. I will strive to keep her promise, America, my home. America, America, may God bless America, and freedom reign across America, my home. From the shorelines to the prairies, to the cities great and small, we have reaped the fruits of justice and liberty for all.
So with deep appreciation for the blessings of freedom that we know in this wonderful land of ours, I'm Dr. George Simon, welcoming you to another edition of Character Matters. This is the program where we talk about what I consider to be the defining issue of our time, the character crisis that we face and that affects so many aspects of our lives, from our relationships, our relationships at home, with our spouses or significant others, with our families, with our communities. It affects our economic situations, our political situation. It affects everything, every aspect of our lives. This is a great and wonderful place to live, where we enjoy an unprecedented degree of freedom, freedom that is under assault because, unfortunately, there are too many character-impaired people among us these days that prompt government to try and regulate our lives, to try and manage us with rules and regulations as a substitute for an internal moral compass to guide us. And it's taking its toll, and it's threatening the freedoms that we enjoy. And we really need to do something serious to reverse that trend. And toward that end, I write my books, and I blog on manipulative-people.com and on the blog Psychology, Philosophy, and Real Life at counselingresource.com, counseling with two L's, by the way, resource.com. Timely articles there on both blogs and on my manipulativepeople.com blog. That's manipulative-people.com. I have a series of articles going right now on a future book that I'll be writing to add to the books I've already written on these very subjects. First, In Sheep's Clothing, Understanding and Dealing with Manipulative People, the international bestseller on dealing with the manipulative types in your life. And also my book, Character Disturbance, The Phenomenon of Our Age, an in-depth look at all of the disturbed characters that you're likely to encounter in your life and the kind of havoc that they wreak, and what you can do about it, and especially what to look for in the way of help when you go looking for help. And then The Judas Syndrome, my book for the Christian faith community, on how the power about the power of genuine faith to really transform and save a person from their baser selves. And then my latest release with Dr. Catherine Armistead, How Did We End Up Here? Just the very book for anyone who is either in the midst of or at the end of a truly dysfunctional relationship and wondering how it got to that point. How did it all happen? How could they have been so deceived? And how to pick up the pieces and move on. How to become a better judge of character. How to help ensure that the same mess does not occur all over again. And for somebody who's just wondering how we ended up here as a society. So I invite you to avail yourself of my books and the many articles, hundreds of timely articles on the blogs at manipulative-people.com and counseling resource with 2 L's .com, and also by tuning in to Character Matters every Sunday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 p.m. Central, and join the conversation if you want. If you have something you'd like to ask, if you have an experience you'd like to share, or just something of interest that you want to give to the listening audience. Maybe you have a situation you're dealing with right now where you need some advice. In any case, give us a call at 718-717-8296. That's 718-717-8296. I'm happy to take your call. I mentioned earlier that I was going to be talking about the current series of articles because it is a kind of an introduction of sorts to my upcoming book, a second book with Dr. Catherine Armistead, tentatively titled The 10 Commandments of Character, How to Lead a Significant Life. And this is a book that I've wanted to write for some time. Dr. Armistead helped me with it. And it combines the current science with lessons that I have learned over the years from dealing with literally hundreds, if not thousands, of cases, individuals, families, couples, both impaired characters and spouses, children of impaired characters, and all the lessons learned about what it really takes in the way of formative experience to help instill that kind of internal compass that will not only help a person function responsibly in this crazy mixed up world of ours, but will also help build some kind of immune system to all of the aspects of modern culture that are detrimental and impair solid character formation. We live in an age of unprecedented entitlement, moral relativism, permissiveness, and sometimes it's hard for people to find their compass. It's hard for them to find their center. It's hard for them to define a healthy sense of self. They have so many mixed messages that they're bombarded with on every dimension that make it very difficult to forge the kind of character that can not only get a person through life and help them create a life of prosperity and wholesomeness, but also build strong communities. At the beginning of the hour and at the end of the hour, I've said this over and over again. I don't mind saying it time and time again. We have new listeners all the time. At the beginning and the end of the hour, you hear this theme song that is a piece that my wife and I wrote at the turn of the century, not at the turn of the century, at the turn of the millennium, the new millennium. Anthem for the millennium, commonly called America My Home. And its premise is very simple. It was the founder's intent that if you give people who have a solid internal moral compass, the maximum freedom from any kind of government or other intrusion into their lives. You basically leave decent, God-fearing, good people alone. They will not only take care of themselves and prosper themselves, but they will take care of their families. They will prosper their families. They will also build strong communities. And strong communities build great countries. And that's what America's greatness has always been vested in during our periods of greatness. We've had periods, unfortunately, that we can and should be ashamed of. We've also had periods where we rose to the occasion and demonstrated our true character. And we need to do that again. But America's greatness has never resided in its economic might or its political or its military power. Its military power is unprecedented. We have the strongest military in the world. We're the world's only remaining superpower. That cannot save us. As we're learning time and time again, billions, if not trillions of dollars spent to learn that lesson. Truly trillions of debt. Thousands of men and women sacrificing their lives has not brought us the kind of security that we would like. So our greatness just doesn't reside there. It never has, it never will. And we're the richest country on earth, per capita, by far. It's not the answer either, and it's not the source of any greatness. Our greatness has always resided, and will always reside, in the character of our people. When we are at the individual and collective level, really good, honest. That's a key word. Honest, caring, compassionate, dutiful, responsible people. When we honor and treasure and live out our highest ideals, then we're great. That's what makes us great. And that's the basis for the opening and closing song that you hear. And we're coming into that time of the year when more and more people are going to be requesting. We've already had several requests for performances this year, but we'll get more, I hope. I hope this will be a banner year for people who want to join the chorus at patriotic events, starting with Memorial Day, then Flag Day, then Independence Day, then Labor Day, then Veterans Day, or any other patriotic event, where folks will join the chorus and carry the song's message and inspire people. Inspire people that we have it within us to be the great, great country that we are always had the potential to be and have lived up to in certain times. We can do it again. So I hope it inspires you to listen. I do hope if you're listening, if your civic organization, your church, your club, your city, your town is putting on a patriotic event and you want to be, or you know someone who could use this piece to help inspire folks and raise patriotic spirits in the right way, I'd be pleased if you'd contact me. You can always go to the blog at manipulative-people.com. There's a feature on the blog. There's a contact page. Anybody that wants to contact me can click on the Contact Dr. Simon feature. It'll take you right to my private email address, and I will respond. I promise I will respond. I have to triage mail that comes in. I get a ton of mail. And if you're listening, I know my web consultant listens quite frequently. I have to apologize to him most sincerely. He emailed me a week ago, and I have been so inundated. I have been so up to my eyeballs in work this past week, I haven't had a chance yet to respond. I apologize. If you're listening, you know who you are. I sincerely apologize. It's been literally the week from hell as far as time commitments go. And it kind of goes like that for me. But I couldn't be happier. I'm fulfilled in my work. I like to carry the message, but I will respond if you write to me using the contact feature. I will get back to you. Sometimes it takes me a while, especially when I'm traveling and I get behind. And in that vein, let me mention once again, I am going to be traveling here very soon. In the first week of May, I'll be in the New York City area, 2 locations on Long Island, and also in Manhattan on the 3rd, 4th, and 5th, or 4th, 5th, and 6th. I'm not sure. At any rate, the first week in May on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of the first week in May. I'll be in that New York City area and doing a professional training. It is open to the public, however. And toward that end, I got a really nice email from one of my relatives that lives in the area who's going to be attending. I couldn't be happier than I am to be getting that word that a cousin that I haven't seen in forever is going to be coming to one of the workshops. And hopefully I'll have some other time to spend as well. So that is really going to be a treat. Anyone is welcome. Unfortunately, because these are professional workshops, they're priced a little higher than the public workshops. But I'll have some word for you, I think, at the end of the year about some public workshops that we'll be doing toward the end of next year. In advance of me kind of trying out retirement one more time. I tried to retire about 6 years ago, and somehow that just didn't quite work out. I gradually kind of went down that slippery slope of doing more and more work, but I'm going to need to do it sooner or later. I'm kind of getting up there in years, and my schedule is kind of taking its toll in many ways. So, but I do want to do one last round of public workshops, and I'll have some announcements about that toward the end of this year for next year. Toward the end of next year, we'll be doing some public workshops. They'll be more reasonably priced, and they will be per person much more cost effective because they'll be designed for larger audiences. So toward that end, I invite you, if you are interested in coming to any of the current workshops, you can find information on my blog at manipulative-people.com. Just click on the page using the sitemap that says webinars, seminars, and workshops, and you'll find all the workshops that are currently scheduled, and that is updated every week. So keep your eyes on that. We'll be adding more very shortly. And then you also can go to the cross-country education website. They're the sponsoring entity for these workshops. So you can go to Cross Country Education and get information on the workshops as well. Just look under the live seminars and search under my name, Dr. George Simon, and you'll find all the information you need. So toward that end, I want to say once again, in advance of these workshops, I want to get this last book with Dr. Armistead out there. And I'm also very pleased with the response of all of you to our first book together, How Did We End Up Here? Well, it's exceeded all of our expectations. It's word of mouth that has promoted all of my work, this program, my books, my blog. It's word of mouth. We don't do any high-profile stuff. Folks who visit my YouTube channel know that I just recently put up the only fairly high-profile interview I did back at the launch, the first edition of In Sheep's Clothing, way back in the year 2000. No, before then. I'm sorry. It was way before then. It was probably in 1997. Yeah, probably then. At any rate, I put it up on YouTube. But, high-profile events have not been the way that my work has gained the notoriety that it has. It's all been word of mouth, grassroots support. And I'm proud to say that In Sheep's Clothing, in addition to being published now in 18 foreign languages, and we're still counting, we're still adding, and we're also going to be having a Spanish language edition coming out very soon. In addition to all that, we are perhaps the best-selling independent publication in the field of psychology, self-help, relationships, mental health of all time. In Sheep's Clothing, in its various revisions, will be out 20 years. It will begin its 21st year this September. That's a phenomenal achievement. And I can't thank you enough. You who listen, you who visit the blog, you especially who have taken the time and made the effort to post the reviews on Amazon and on BarnesandNoble.com and all the other sites that are responsible for the popularity of the books. I can't thank you enough. I also can't thank enough our blog commentators who provide such helpful additional commentary on the articles I post, one of which I'll be talking about momentarily. And I appreciate the callers into this program. And if you want to be one of them, you want to join the conversation, you have a situation you'd like to talk about, you have a situation you think has a lesson for those in the listening audience, maybe you have a question you want to ask. Whatever the case may be, give us a call at 718-717-8296. That's 718-717-8296. I'm happy to take your call. Well, in advance of my book to be published, hopefully in the next couple of months, tentatively titled The 10 Commandments of Character, I mentioned this earlier, I have had a series of articles going on the blog, and part 2 of the current series was just posted this past Friday on the first commandment, which has to do with being mindful of our place in the big picture, in the big scheme of creation and of the impact that we have. And overcoming our inherent egocentricity. As I point out in the article and in the article that preceded it, the first part of the article, we are all born naturally, inherently egocentric. We have this symbiotic relationship with our mothers. Our development begins in the womb. And as far as we're concerned, from early on, even from the earliest days in our birth, the things in our environment are part of us. We even see them as extensions of ourselves. We have to learn, basically, that we're not the center of the universe, and that everything doesn't really revolve around us or our needs. As infants, all we know is whether we're cold or we're hot or we're hungry or we're wet. And all we know how to do is scream and cry and wail. And then we wait until someone or something tends to us, takes care of us, reduces the anxiety, reduces the fear. Some of us, unfortunately, don't really grow beyond that. Those among us who have what I call these character development arrests that are responsible for so many of the problems that come to the attention of mental health professionals today have just simply not learned what they need to learn in order to function more independently, and especially not so self-centeredly. I unfortunately know too many people who, even though it was natural for them as infants to think of themselves as the center of the universe and to think of everybody else as basically there to serve their needs, they never grew out of that. They enter adulthood thinking and feeling the same way, thinking that all they have to do is scream or cry or threaten or whatever. And then it's everybody else's duty to come to their aid, to give them what they want. It's a pretty infantile position. But unfortunately, it's an all too common position. Really a sad kind of statement on where we are. Many times, many times, when folks seek help from a mental health professional, the professional will give a diagnosis and also will give the person that they're seeing a kind of lay person's version of the diagnosis. Or maybe they'll even label something else other than a formal diagnosis. Maybe they'll frame the problem as one of communication. Maybe they'll frame the problem as one of unhappiness, anxiety, fear, dependency, codependency, whatever the case may be. When in fact, the vast majority of the time, these days, in our days of time, in our days and time, in our days of unprecedented permissiveness, relativism, entitlement, in our days where people are bombarded by so many conflicting messages about the values that are necessary to form a strong internal compass. So many times today, regardless of what the therapist or counselor says is the issue, so many times the real issue is underdeveloped character. And, for a long time, there were forces out there, especially the American Medical Association, which was making a very concerted, deliberate effort to save what was at that time, maybe 30 years ago, the struggling practice of psychiatry. They made a very concerted effort to bombard the airwaves with messages that all of your problems had nothing to do with character. In fact, they thought it was irresponsible. At least that's the message they gave, that it was irresponsible for a professional to even consider that problems could be related to character, as opposed to a simple matter of biochemistry that had gotten out of balance and needed to be put back into balance by somebody who could prescribe you a magic pill that would make everything all right. Now, I am not here to say that this was totally a wrong-sided idea. It wasn't. There are certain circumstances where, in fact, what we used to attribute to a variety of other things, including character, really are strictly a matter of biochemistry. Certain illnesses where a person's brain no longer operates correctly through no fault of their own, other than biochemistry went awry. There are such conditions. But those cases in which biochemistry is the whole issue, or the sole issue, those cases are very rare, relatively speaking. And yet, today, so many of our problems are treated with pills. We're perhaps the most over-medicated society there is. And we do this with other things, too. There are there are individuals who, because of their genetic makeup and other predisposing factors, suffer from high blood pressure. And they don't engage in any of the behaviors that put them at greater risk. They're lean and fit. They're active. They eat the proper foods, maintain the proper diet, maintain the proper exercise regimen, and yet they suffer from blood pressure that's off the charts, and were it not for some of the wonderful medicines we have, they would be at prime risk for a debilitating or fatal stroke, heart attack, other illnesses. And so thank God for the medicines that we have. But that situation I just described to you is the rare case. The vast majority of cases are individuals who through behavioral habit have really done all of the wrong things to promote their health. They've eaten the wrong things. They don't get enough exercise. They've developed this metabolic syndrome, as we call it now. And their body is crying, literally, under the weight of it all. And they develop all these secondary problems, including type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, a number of illnesses. And so then what do? We give pills. Is that the ultimate solution for people? For some people, yes. Because for some people, that's all that there is going on. But that's the rare case. That's the rare case. For most people, it's about the behavioral habits. It's about the character they've developed. It's about how they can't say no to certain things, or how they can't seem to push themselves when they need to push themselves. It's about how they can't deny themselves when they need to deny themselves. In short, they haven't learned how to love themselves properly. And so instead, they take a pill which masks or diminishes the seriousness of the problem, and then they keep on abusing themselves. This, my good friends, is not good medicine. The same thing is true for psychological problems. Yes, there are psychological problems that are solely rooted in biochemistry that's gone awry, that has absolutely nothing to do with a person's behavioral habits or the character that they have developed. But that's the rare thing. And so when someone comes in to a therapist's office and they're told that all they need to resolve their anxiety or their depression or the other things that they're struggling with, because they haven't learned to cope, when they're told that all they need is this magic little pill, which does help, then unfortunately, the real underlying problem not only continues, but it festers and it builds. And there will come a point where, despite the benefits of good medication, problems will remain or get worse and ultimately lead to some kind of disaster. So it's not good therapy. It's not good behavioral medicine to just attribute everything to biochemistry. Character matters. That's this program's title. It really does matter. And so for most of my professional life, I've spent my time learning about and then implementing the kinds of strategies that will actually help people grow in character. And it's delicate work. It's delicate work. I hope you will avail yourself of the blog at manipulative-people.com and read the hundreds of articles on the blog about these very matters. It will put everything into perspective for you. I also hope that you will avail yourself of my books, In Sheep's Clothing, Understanding and Dealing with Manipulative People, character disturbance, the phenomenon of our age, the Judas syndrome, how did we end up here? And soon, my upcoming book, tentatively titled The Ten Commandments of Character. I regret to say that even though I thought it might be a matter of 6 or 7 weeks before that new book is ready, it does not look to me that it will be ready before summer. And I'm really kind of sad about that, but it doesn't seem to be any way out. I'll let you know if there's any change in that timetable, but there are various reasons why I think there's going to be a hang-up there. And I'll have more to say about that later. But at any rate, it doesn't look like it will be ready before the summer. Nonetheless, I'll keep you posted, and I'll keep posting some preview articles on the blog every week. For the next 10 or 12 weeks, we'll be highlighting what you can expect in the way of material for that book. So mosey on over to the website, and if you have a desire to contact me, do so using the contact feature. By the way, on the blog, on the contact page, there is another feature there where you can request a consultation. There's also a page that describes the consultations. I don't do face-to-face therapy very often anymore. I have a select and limited client load, and I do engage in face-to-face Skype-based or FaceTime-based consultations, not for therapy purposes. The consultations I do are not for formal assessment, diagnosis, or for ongoing therapy. They're time limited and they're scope limited. And they are limited exclusively to expanding upon and clarifying the principles that I write about in my books and how to apply them in your life. And a prerequisite for the consultations is that you have to be well versed in these things and still have questions. So you have to have made yourself available of articles on the blogs, or you have to have read and digested my books, and you still have a situation where you're looking for some guidance. You don't quite understand some of the principles I'm advocating or how you would apply them to your situation. So you have some questions, and that's what these consultations are meant for. And so I do that from time to time. I see we have a call coming in. I'm going to take that. Just give me a minute. Hello, and welcome to Character Matters.
Hey, Dr. Simon.
Hello.
Hi. Did you have a good circuit? Make it through Tulsa and everything?
I did.
Good.
Yes, thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, I read your the first part of the 10 Commandments of Character on the blog spot. Enjoying that series, and so I was listening to you earlier and thinking, talking about the anthem, the intro, and there's still a great many people that still see the idea of what America really stands for, and so many others are disillusioned, and they see America as the system as being oppressive, the shackled runner, I guess you might say, in some situation. How would we go about? I mean, what direction do we take towards unity, where we can see this as we're in the same position, and it's not the system; it's the people that have these people with bad character that have taken the reins of how things run.
Well, I have two things I'd like to say about that, but I'm going to put you on the spot if you don't mind and ask you first if you would share with me your thoughts on that. There are two things that I write about in character disturbance, and I will be writing more about in this upcoming book with Dr. Armistead, and I'll share those with you. But I'd like to hear your thoughts first, if you don't mind.
Well, mostly by engaging one another and learning how to communicate more readily. Because a lot of times when we're saying the same words, it has different meanings. And
Yeah.
we have a lot of cross culture here across America that we have to consider, and a lot of this narrative that's inserted for political correctness and stuff. And sometimes we can't say the same word as another person of a different class, and I don't like to use that word, but
what you're saying there really resonates with me and brings up a point. How do you, in our days and times of suspiciousness, mistrust, and especially political correctness, how do we have an honest conversation, a truly honest conversation about just about anything? How do we do that in this time of kind of rampant mistrust and political correctness? How do we do that?
Well, we can't hope to be understood if we don't understand who we are communicating with. So that's the direction that at least that I hope I'm going.
Yeah. Well, to answer your question, there are two major points I'd like to make about what has to be done to reverse the trend. And I'll preface the first one by saying this. It's my belief that for the past 40 or 50 years or so, there has been this mega trend in our society whereby the burden on responsible people, those people who take their responsibilities seriously, who get up every day, get dressed, go to work, take care of their families, pay their bills, pay their taxes, the whole 9 yards. The burden on those individuals grows daily and exponentially so, and has been doing so for, like I said, the last 40 or 50 years. Meanwhile, the burden on those folks who have shirked their responsibilities and who have just kind of thrown caution to the wind, do whatever they please, don't pay their taxes, don't put in an honest day's work, whatever the case may be, the burden on those folks has dramatically decreased and is doing so exponentially, with the responsible folks having to pick up the slack. That trend must be reversed. We have to hold people accountable. And the way we're trying to do it now, by waiting until we just have to put somebody away in a locked environment, in prison or whatever, that's not a solution. It's not a solution because we already have a greater proportion of our people who are so dysfunctional that they have to be in prison. We already have a greater proportion of those folks than any industrialized country on the planet, and by a lot, by a factor of 3. And we have people waiting to get in by the droves. There's not room enough for them all. So this is not a solution, but the trend has to be reversed. People have to be held accountable. So that's point number one. What do you think of that point?
Absolutely. And those that are sitting in the seats of decision that are working for ulterior motives for the enrichment of their cronies, I think these people certainly need to be held accountable first and foremost.
Mm-hmm.
And then the trend in the social engineering of that's led to the degradation of our culture, to the segregation of our culture. These have all been socially engineered for these people that have taken the reins of government and filled these positions and have guided us to where we are now. And so without addressing these people inside the system and holding those people accountable for creating the problems to start with.
Well, you just
Drugs.
I really appreciate what you just said. I couldn't have said it better myself. You have just introduced point number two. I told you there were two things that I was going to answer your question with, and the second thing is that we've had this other trend, and that is to try and micromanage everyone's lives and legislate our problems away. And the only result of that has been the limitation of people's freedoms. That's the only people who, I've often told this. I've told this little story at workshops when I'm doing my training. The very first day that I consulted to a penal institution to set up a program, you come up to the barbed wire fence and the guard tower and the gates and whatnot, and then there are all these signs that you're bombarded with. The sign says, no firearms, no tobacco, no drugs, no, you can't do this, you can't do that. And I'm thinking, okay, so I'm some thug who's come to smuggle in some methamphetamine. And I see these signs, and I think to myself, crap, I can't bring these in here. And I put my head between my legs, and I turn around, and I walk away. This is ridiculous. Who do we make these rules for? Who do they oppress? Only responsible people even heed them. The irresponsible among us pay absolutely no attention to them.
And they didn't need that sign to tell them what was right.
Yeah,
what not to do.
Exactly. And we're having this same debate now. People cannot be trusted with weapons because of the absolute explosion of individuals out there who possess them, who haven't the character to even begin to control their rage responsibly, let alone use a weapon responsibly. And so what's our solution to that? Our solution to that is to make rules that affect everybody's freedom, like it would possibly impact the problem. And it doesn't. And so the other point would be is that trend has to be reversed. We cannot continue to oppress responsible people by trying to micromanage everyone's lives and engineer basically our standards of being. We're only going to win this character fight. We're only going to win it by reaching individual hearts. We're not going to do it legislatively.
Well, that is so well said. Perfect. I don't know if we have enough time, but I wanted to ask you a question. How many innocent, and I don't mean innocent of the crime or not guilty, but during your time that you dealt with people in the penitentiary, how many innocents did you see come in and then leave out hardened?
Well, that's a very good question. Completely innocent, very few. Innocent.
You understand the word? I
understand, and that's why I'm qualifying. Innocent of the crime for which they were convicted of, and committed. Some more of them. That didn't mean, however, that justice wasn't in some perverted way served. Many times, and this is the craziness of the debate we're having right now about these so-called nonviolent offenders who we want to just simply release because they're really diseased individuals who are in for drug-related crimes and they need treatment as opposed to incarceration. Well, I will tell you that a great percentage of the time, it's really a fairly significant percentage, that may have been how their probation or parole was revoked and how they managed to get back into confinement. But that doesn't mean that that's all that was going on, and that doesn't even mean that that's all that they did. Many times it was something much, much more serious and much more dangerous to society, but the prosecution didn't think they had enough to convict easily, and it was so much easier to revoke their probation or parole on one of these minor offenses and at least get them back in custody than it was to spend all the time and effort it would have been, and they might have failed to get the conviction. So, when you hear all these things, you think, oh my gosh, our system is so broken. We have all these innocent or relatively mild offenders, and we're just mistreating them horribly. There's some truth to that, but it's not as big a problem as the media makes it out to be. And
let me
go ahead.
quantify my end then just a little more. Let me be more specific. Let's say a young guy comes in, for pot, and not only what the possibilities of happening to him if he's not a strong person, but then if he is a strong person, then it's more like a kind of schooling to be a little more hardened.
Well, I hear that. I've heard that said a lot. I've not seen people come in undisturbed and leave disturbed or hardened because they basically went to school for how to become hard in prison. That happens, but that doesn't happen as often either as the media would like to make you think that it does. Most folks with disturbed character have had that character disturbance formed well in their late adolescence and early adulthood. They didn't become that way because they did something heinous and went to prison and were basically trained to become that way there. I'm afraid we're running short of time.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Dr. Simon.
Thank you. Yeah, some really, what that last issue you talked about, we should talk about that again sometime.
Absolutely.
And when you sense an opening in one of the programs, call back in. We'll have a bigger discussion about that. That deserves some expansion. All right. Take care.
Bye. Thanks.
Thank you. Well, I'm sorry we're getting close to the end of the hour here, and I did want to make a couple of announcements once again. Just a reminder to check my manipulative-people.com blog site. To check it for not only the availability of workshops that I'll be doing through the rest of this year, but check it for the many articles, timely articles there at manipulative-people.com, and also the blog site at counselingwith2lsresource.com. And thank you once again for tuning in to Character Matters. As you listen to the bumper, the song that plays at the end, I hope you'll sense the sentiment in it about the greatness of this country and where it resides. Give people a decent moral compass, the maximum freedom, and we will thrive as a people and be great. That's the premise of America. That's the dream of America. That's the message that America, my home, wants to promote. And if you hear it and inspired by it, and you'd like to join the chorus of those carrying the song's message, I'd sure like to hear from you. You can contact me through the blog at manipulative-people.com, and I'd be happy to provide you with the music or the accompaniment tracks for a performance at a patriotic event in your area. And with that, I'll leave you again till next week for another edition of Character Matters. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you again next Sunday.